Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. We want to welcome our friends in South Africa, the United States, and around the world to this week's edition of A Conversation with El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. I'm pleased to be your host, coming to you once again through the Salam Media platform out of Johannesburg, South Africa. Salam Media is an online portal for humanitarian journalism. We don't just report the news, we advise you on what you can do about it. Today's topic, where do we go from here on the human rights front, actually took a turn. It took a rather dramatic turn just a couple of days ago when an article by the respected writer Jeremy Cahill came to my attention. It was a very, very disturbing piece for me. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Yeah, it was very disturbing piece. Let me say up front that the subject of this report is someone that I know well. Nahla Al-Aryan is she's a sweet, soft-spoken Muslim lady. She's a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and she's Palestinian. She has lost quite a number of members of her family in this genocide that's taking place in Gaza. The smear campaign and the way her presence at a protest in New York was used, was manipulated. Just her mere presence. It is disgusting, to say the least. And this is the dramatic turn. This constitutes the dramatic turn that the subject matter for today's focus took when I saw this piece a couple of days ago. So with that being used as an introduction, that's where I want to begin. I want to share this article by Jeremy Cahill that was published in The Intercept. The title of the piece, New York Mayor smeared grandmother as an outside agitator, quote unquote, to justify NYPD assault on Columbia University. And there's a note here after the title that reads, Nahla Al-Aryan lost more than 200 relatives in Israel's attacks on Gaza. Then Eric Adams said she was the reason police raided Columbia. Oh man, this is really, really outrageous. Without any further ado, let's get into the substance of this piece. It's a long piece, and it's well worth the read. If you haven't seen it, inshallah ta'ala, we will include a link to the article for you to read yourself following this broadcast today. The piece reads as follows. Nahla Al-Aryan has been living a nightmare for the past 7 months, watching from afar as Israel carries out its scorched earth war against her ancestral homeland in the Gaza Strip. Like many Palestinian Americans, the 63-year-old retired fourth grade teacher from Tampa Bay, Florida, excuse me, has endured 7 months of a steady trickle of WhatsApp messages about the deaths of her relatives. You see, and this is a quote, "My father's family is originally from Gaza. So they are a big family. And they are not only in Gaza City, but also in Deir el-Balah and Khan Yunis. Other parts," Al-Arian told me. Recently, the trickle of horrors became a flood. It started with like 27, and then we lost count until I received this message from my relative who said at least 200 had died, end quote. The catastrophe was the backdrop for Al-Arian's visit last week to Columbia University in New York City. Al-Arian has 5 children, 4 of whom are journalists or filmmakers. On April 25th, 2 of her daughters, Layla and Lama, both award-winning TV journalists, visited the encampment established by Columbia students to oppose the war in Gaza. Layla, an executive producer at Al Jazeera English, with Emmys and a George Polk Award to her name, is a graduate of Columbia's journalism school. Lama was the recipient of the prestigious 2021 Alfred I. DuPont Columbia Award for her reporting for Vice News on the 2020 explosion at the port of Beirut. The 2 sisters traveled to Columbia as journalists to see the campus, and Nahla joined them, period. Of course, and this is a quote, "Of course I tagged along. You know, why would I sit at the hotel by myself? And I wanted to really see those kids. I felt so down," she said. "I was crying every day for Gaza, for the children being killed, for the women, the destruction of my father's city. So I wanted to feel better, you know, to see those kids. I heard a lot about them, how smart they are, how organized, you know. So I said, let's go along with you. So I went," end quote. Nahla Al-Arian was on the campus for less than an hour. She sat and listened to part of a teach-in and shared some hummus with her daughters and some students. Then she left, feeling a glimmer of hope that people, at least these students, actually cared about the suffering and deaths being inflicted on her family in Gaza. Again, let me repeat. She was on campus for about an hour. She goes on to say, quote, I didn't teach them anything. I didn't teach them anything. They are the ones who taught me. They are the ones who gave me hope, she recalled. I felt much better when I went there because I felt those kids are really very well informed, very well educated. They are the conscience of America. They care about the Palestinian people who they never saw or got to meet, end quote. Her husband posted a picture of Nahla sitting on the lawn at the tent city erected by the student protesters on his Twitter feed. He wrote, quote, my wife Nahla in solidarity with the brave and very determined Columbia University students, end quote. Nahla left New York inspired by her visit to Columbia and returned to Virginia to spend time with her grandchildren. A few days later, that one tweet by her husband would thrust Nahla al-Aryan into the center of a spurious narrative promoted by the mayor of New York City and major media outlets. She became the exemplar of the dangerous, quote unquote, outside agitator who was training the students at Columbia. Subhanallah. A'udhu billah. A'udhu billah. We seek refuge with Allah against the conspiracies of the conspirators. This woman was on campus for about an hour to observe, to be inspired, because she just didn't want to stay back in the hotel with her thoughts of the devastation that was happening to her family and other Palestinian families. She was there on the campus for an hour, and she left feeling a bit inspired by what she saw. But when her husband sent out a tweet with a photo of her on campus for about an hour, that tweet became a propaganda rag for those who wanted to point fingers of responsibility to anyone and everyone else other than the apartheid Zionist state of Israel for the demonstrations that are taking place at Columbia and at so many other universities in New York and beyond, in righteous indignation and opposition to the genocide taking place in occupied Palestine. But subhanAllah, it was Nahla's presence. According to Mayor Eric Adams, that was the quote-unquote tipping point in his decision to authorize the military-style raids on the campus. Not what Israel is doing. Not what the goons, the goon squads that weighed in on a number of these campuses to instigate violence under the protection of law. I've yet to hear about any of them being arrested and prosecuted. No, it was the peaceful demonstrators, and it was this Palestinian lady who decided to visit the university campus of one of her daughters who graduated from there, to observe, to be inspired. She became the issue. Let's take our first station break here, and we'll return on the other side with the rest of this article.
It's a new beginning. It's a new era. Salam Media, humanitarian journalism.
Searching for elite local and international investment and advisory services from an award-winning firm? Look no further than the Belmont Mayer Group, your gateway to unparalleled investment and wealth management. At Belmont Mayer, we believe in the art of wealth creation, a meticulous process fueled by our unwavering commitment to excellence. With a focus on providing elite alternative investments and quality advice, we also pride ourselves on maximizing value for our esteemed investors, as seen through our consistent outperformance. Your financial success is our top priority. Join us at Belmont Mayer and experience the difference firsthand. Ready to embark on a journey of greatness? Contact us today. Reach out to the Belmont Mayer Group on 078-786-1698. Call or WhatsApp or email us at info@belmontmayer.com. Elevate your financial future with Belmont Mayer, where every detail matters.
No one wants to let go of that feeling of closeness to Allah that we feel by the end of Ramadan. Ramadan is over, but that closeness doesn't have to be. The deeds most loved by Allah are those done regularly, even if they are small. So don't let go of that feeling. Give a small amount regularly and hold on to Allah's love. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean El-Hajj Lodge, your true home away from home. Al-Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al-Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Dad, these Frymax chips are so tasty.
Wow, that really takes me back. My dad bought me a Frymax chips every day after school. They were my favorite when I was your age as well. Quality is at the very heart of what we do, and that's why we ensure that every Frymax packet is filled with the beautiful goodness and flavor-packed taste that you've come to expect from us since 1982. Frymax, from generation to generation.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Welcome back. Our topic for today, where do we go from here on the human rights front? I want to continue with the read of this article by Jeremy Scahill, published in The Intercept. USA versus Al-Aryan. On February 20th, 2003, Nahla's husband, Sami Al-Aryan, a professor at the University of South Florida, was arrested and indicted on 53 counts of supporting the armed resistance group Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The PIG had been designated by the U.S. Government as a terrorist organization, and the charges against Al-Aryan could have put him in prison for multiple life sentences, plus 225 years. It was a centerpiece case of the George W. Bush administration's domestic war on terror, when John Ashcroft, Bush's notorious attorney general, announced the indictment. He described the Florida-based scholar as, quote, the North American leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Sami Al-Aryan, quote unquote. Among the charges against him was conspiracy to kill or maim persons abroad, specifically in Israel. Yet, the prosecutors openly admitted Al-Aryan had no connection to any violence. He was a well-known and deeply respected figure in the Tampa community, where he and Nahla raised their family. He was also, like many fellow Palestinians, a tenacious critic of U.S. support for Israel and of the burgeoning, quote unquote, global war on terror. His arrest came just days before the U.S. invaded Iraq, a war Al-Aryan was publicly opposed to. The Al-Aryan case was, at its core, a political attack waged by Bush's Justice Department as part of a wider assault on the rights of Muslims in the United States. The government launched a campaign, echoed in media outlets, to portray Al-Aryan as a terror leader at a time when the Bush administration was ratcheting up its so-called global war on terror abroad, and when Muslims in the U.S. were being subjected to harassment, surveillance, and abuse. The legal case against Al-Aryan was flimsy, and prosecutors largely sought to portray his protected First Amendment speech and charitable activities as terrorism. The trial against Al-Aryan, a legal permanent resident in the U.S., did not go well for federal prosecutors. In December 2005, following a 6-month trial, a jury acquitted him on 8 of the most serious counts and deadlocked 10-2 in favor of acquittal on the other 9. The judge made clear he was not pleased with this outcome, and the prosecutors were intent on relitigating the case. Al-Arian had spent 2 years in jail already without any conviction, and was staring down the prospect of years more of litigation. In the face of this reality and the toil the trial against him had taken on his family, Al-Arian agreed to take a plea deal. In 2006, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of providing nonviolent support to people the government alleged were affiliated with the PIJ. As part of the deal, Al-Arian would serve a short sentence and, with his residency revoked, get an expedited deportation. At no point during the government's trial against Al-Arian did the prosecution provide evidence he was connected to any acts of violence. For the next 8 years, following his release from prison in 2008, Al-Arian was kept under house arrest and effectively subjected to prosecutorial harassment as the government sought to place him in what his lawyers characterized as a judicial trap by compelling him to testify in a separate case. His defense lawyers alleged the federal prosecutor in the case, who had a penchant for pursuing high-profile political cases, held an anti-Palestinian bias. Amnesty International raised concerns that Al-Arian had been abused in prison, and he faced the prospect of yet another lengthy, costly court battle. The saga would stretch for several more years before prosecutors ended the case and Al-Arian was deported from the United States. And as for those of you who have been following our work, our broadcasts, again, we had our brother on a couple of weeks ago from Turkey, and I made the note, and I make it again, that America's loss was Turkey's gain. He is doing what he does best in terms of scholarship and teaching and raising the consciousness of his students and others who are exposed to the work that he's doing out of Turkey. And again, our loss in this country is that country's gain. Moving right along in the article. Quote, "This case remains one of the most troubling chapters in this nation's crackdown after 9/11. Al-Arian's lawyer, Jonathan Turley, wrote in 2014 when the case was officially dropped, despite the jury verdict and the agreement reached to allow Dr. Al-Arian to leave the country, the Justice Department continued to fight for his incarceration and for a trial in this case. It will remain one of the most disturbing cases of my career in terms of the actions taken by our government," he wrote. End quote. That federal prosecutors approved Al-Arian's plea deal gave a clear indication that the U.S. government knew Al-Arian was not an actual terrorist. terrorist facilitator or any kind of threat. The Bush administration, after all, was not in the habit of letting suspected terrorists walk. Al-Aryan and his family have always maintained his innocence and say that he was being targeted for his political beliefs and activism on behalf of Palestinians. He resisted the deal, Nahla Al-Aryan said. Quote, he didn't even want to accept it. He wanted to move on with another trial, Nahla said. But because of our pressure on him, let's just get done with it. Because in the end, we're going to leave anyway. So that's why, end quote. Sami and Nahla Al-Aryan now live in Turkey. Sami is not allowed to visit his children and grandchildren stateside, but Nahla visits often. The NYPD smear campaign. The night of the raids on Colombia. And ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, listen to this part of this article closely. I mean, because it really underscores the venality of politics, the politics being played in the Big Apple, and the propaganda campaigns that are being waged against people of conscience. How law is being used as a weapon of war against people who want to help this country live up to the better part of itself. Listen closely to what follows. The night of the raids on Colombia, police and other city officials began leaking to journalists that the wife of a convicted terrorist was on the campus, cavorting with the student protesters who had seized Hamilton Hall. A reporter for CBS News tweeted the allegation, citing City Hall sources. During a broadcast on CNN late that night, the network showed Sami Al-Aryan's tweet with Nahla's picture. Quote, we are learning tonight that the wife of an indicted terrorist was on the campus, said the host Laura Coates, adding that, quote, a source had tipped off CNN about Al-Aryan's tweet. CNN in quotes, a former federal prosecutor, did not respond to requests for comment. That's another interesting point. You know, you can see government operatives from various government agencies, in this case, a former prosecutor, going into the media, becoming media correspondents and anchors. This is how it works. Nahla was asleep in Virginia when the raids at Columbia unfolded and was unaware that she was becoming a figure in the emerging New York Police Department and media narratives. Let me repeat that line because it's very important. Nahla was asleep in Virginia when the raids at Columbia unfolded and was unaware that she was becoming a figure in the emerging New York Police Department and media narratives. In the middle of the night, she checked her family's WhatsApp group where her daughter had posted the since deleted tweet from the CBS reporter and a clip from the CNN segment showing her photo. Quote, "I felt betrayed by the authorities who resort to using these kinds of tricks, illegitimate, illegal trips, shameful methods to attack those students." End quote. And she goes on to say, "I woke up at 2 a.m. and unfortunately I took my phone and I looked. I was shocked. I couldn't sleep for 2 or 3 hours. I stayed awake feeling very depressed and feeling very shocked. I don't care about myself. I care about those students that I admired. I didn't want any harm to happen to them because of me or anyone else. And I felt betrayed by the authorities who resorted to using these kinds of tricks, illegitimate, illegal tricks, shameful methods to attack those students. So I felt betrayed and angry. Is that the America that we believe in? The democracy?" End quote. In a blitz of interviews the next 2 mornings, Adams, the African-American New York City mayor, repeatedly mentioned El-Arian's presence at Columbia and said it was a crucial part of his decision to authorize the military-style raid on the building as evidence of quote-unquote outside agitators directing the protests. Adams cited El-Arian as the one specific example to make his case. Quote, "One of the individual's husband was arrested for and convicted for terrorism on a federal level," Adams said on MSNBC's Morning Joe. Quote, "I knew that there was no way I was going to allow those children to be exploited the way they were being exploited. And many people thought that this was just a natural evolution of a protest. It was not. These were professionals that were here." End quote. SubhanAllah. You talk about exploitation. Mayor Adams. He engaged in concert with an establishment media that did not do its job of raising questions, of investigating, of probing. He engaged in the most deceitful type of manipulation, the most deceitful type of exploitation. Moving right along. Adams echoed the tone and tenor of his remarks on CBS mornings. But on NPR's Morning Edition, Adams went further, saying Nahla's presence at Columbia was the impetus for the raid. Quote, what really was a tipping point for me, this is a quote from Mayor Adams, was when I learned that one of the outside agitators' professional's husband was arrested for federal terrorism charges. I knew I could not sit back and state that I'm going to allow this to continue to escalate. That is why I made that determination. To raid the campus. Now, they say here the mayor's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Quote, the mayor's inflammatory comments about my mother's brief visit to Columbia are being used to justify the heavy-handed and oppressive police raid of the student protests, said Layla El-Arian, Nahla's daughter. It's equally shameful that some journalists are simply regurgitating these sensationalist claims that are intended to smear students protesting Israel's daily killing and maiming of Palestinians in Gaza, end quote. In a press conference on May 1st, the NYPD acknowledged that Nahla El-Arian was not on the campus during the raids, but continued to use her visit the previous week as a justification for the police assault on the protests. And this is a quote. Last week, there was the wife of somebody who had been convicted for material support to terrorism on campus, said Rebecca Weiner, the NYPD Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism. Quote, we have no evidence of any criminal wrongdoing on her part, but that's not somebody who I would want to necessarily have influencing my child if I were a parent of somebody at Columbia, end quote. The smear campaign against Nahla went far and wide online, particularly in the right-wing media and social media ecosystem. The Israeli actor Noah Tishby posted a video featuring the picture of Nahla's visit to Columbia and falsely said she had been convicted with connections to terrorism financing. Nahla has never been convicted or charged with any crimes. Let's go to another commercial break, and we'll see you back on the other side.
Are you planning a wedding, birthday party, corporate event, or any special occasion? Kani's Catering Services got you covered. Our catering services are here to elevate your event to unforgettable heights. From tantalizing appetizers to mouth-watering main courses and desserts, our culinary creations are crafted with passion and precision to delight your guests' taste buds. Our spit braai is a talk of the town. Indulge in succulent, tender meats, slow roasted to perfection over an open flame. Kaniz Catering Services chefs bring creativity and expertise to every dish they prepare, ensuring that each bite is a culinary masterpiece. We take care of your guests while you relax and enjoy every moment of your function. Whether it's plated meals to a simple buffet, we are on top of it all. Ready to start planning your perfect event? Get in touch with us today to discuss your catering needs and request a personalized quote. Let us take your event to the next level with our exceptional catering services. Kaniz Catering Services, situated at number 373 Jabundlovo Street, Pietermaritzburg. Call now 033 342 3511 or email us on info@kaniz.co.za for Pietermaritzburg and surrounding areas only. Visit www.kaniz.co.za.
Contact Lenasia Livestock and Poultry for all your sadaqah, akika and kurbani requirements. We offer clean, hygienic abattoir style and refrigeration facilities. Sheep, goat and cows are available at competitive market-related prices, direct to the public. We slaughter, slice and distribute on your behalf. But that's not all. Introducing Meat Masters Halal Butchery, our sister company situated on our farm in Lenasia. Unbeatable prices on lamb, beef and chicken. Lenasia Livestock and Poultry. Livestock is our business. We are Sanha approved. Telephone 011 857 1774. Call now.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with Penny Appeal organizations in Gaza.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic, Sharia, and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
In the Eastern Cape, children are facing unimaginable hunger. A baby was rescued, fed only powdered drink. A young girl lost her life searching for food. Children eat grass to survive and return to school on Mondays too hungry to learn, some even crying from hunger. Teachers and principals are giving what little they have, but it's not enough. This Ramadan, you can make a difference. Help us support Muslim families in Gqeberha and rural Eastern Cape. Together, we can feed hope, fight hunger, foster change. Donate to the Al-Fida Foundation. Send your proof of payments to admin@alfida.co.za for Section 18A tax certificates or contact us on 041 484 1288.
You South African, of course. You anxious about the future. We've got you covered. Build on your wealth portfolio with Randry Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange. Visit us at 151 Stephen Dlamini Road, Musgrave, Durban, or call us on 031 202 4700 for more information. Randry Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange, your passport to gold investment.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us for the first time, our focus in today's broadcast is on the question of where do we go from here on the human rights front. And we're giving special attention to propaganda, the use of propaganda, the importance of propaganda, both positive and negative. In my resumption of the read of this very important article by Jeremy Scahill, I want to resume by revisiting the last paragraph I read, because it's very important. The smear campaign against Nahla, that's Nahla al-Aryan, went far and wide online, particularly in the right-wing media and social media ecosystem. The Israeli actor Noah Tishby posted a video featuring the picture of Nahla's visit to Colombia and falsely said she had been convicted with connections to terrorism financing, quote unquote. Nahla has never been convicted or even charged with any crimes. The New York Post ran an article with the headline, quote, "Wife of convicted terrorist Sami al-Aryan was hanging around outside." No. They said hanging out. She was hanging out at Columbia encampment before dramatic raid, quote unquote. For Nahla and the Al-Aryan family, none of this is shocking. They have endured more than 20 years of surveillance and trials that have displaced and scattered the family, continuing a long history of what happened to them and other Palestinians throughout the past 75 years. The Al-Aryans themselves are descendants of Palestinians expelled from their homes during the 1948 Nakba. Quote, "They just distract people so people will not think about what's happening in Gaza," end quote. Even as they express outrage at how Nahla was smeared, the Al-Aryan family is quick to point out that their suffering pales in comparison to the Palestinians of Gaza, including the scores of their own family members who have died in an Israeli war fueled by the U.S. government. Quote, "I just feel angry because I am being used to hurt those students, to find an excuse to invade their place and to arrest those students. And I feel so terrible," Nahla said. She went on to say it's also a distraction from the genocide that's happening in Gaza. Just focusing on a stupid thing like this, they just distract people so people will not think about what's happening in Gaza, the killing that's still happening every day, every minute, that destruction. I can't believe it. They focus on my story and they ignore the most depressing story, which is the killing of innocent people. This is shameful. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I want to thank Jeremy Scahill and The Intercept for this very, very valuable piece of corrective journalism. And that's what this is. You know, a few weeks back, in one of the broadcasts, I referenced the man who is considered to be the father of American journalism, and declaration he made, the beautiful statement of that reflects what a good journalist is. The title of it is The Journalist's Creed. The Journalist's Creed. For those of you who may not have caught that broadcast, I mean, Google The Journalist's Creed. I think his name was Walter Williams, but he is considered to be the dean of journalism. And just Google The Journalist's Creed and read it. It lays out in a very beautiful and thought-provoking way what the standard of journalism should be. And I noted in my book, in which, a book I wrote years ago, The State of America, 2003, Don't Say You Didn't Know. That was when I first, that was around the time when the Journalist's Creed first came to my attention, and I included it in the book because I just felt that it was so important. It was so important. So it's a beautiful layout of a standard that if American journalism and journalism in other parts of the world that likes to refer to itself as Western democracies, if they abided by this creed and how they conducted their affairs and how they plied their trade and engaged in the responsibility, a very weighty responsibility of providing information to the public. If they abided by the creed, democracy, quote unquote, as it's called, would be in a much healthier state. But we have democracies that are full of hypocrisies. And in large part, it's because of the low brow standard of journalism that we see much too often. I'm reminded of that verse in the Quran that reads in translation of the meaning, if a wicked person or a wicked entity comes to you with any news, ascertain the truth. Otherwise, you can do harm to an innocent person unknowingly and afterwards be full of regret for what you have done. This case of Nahla al-Aryan is an example of this, although the powers that be, those who are responsible for the disinformation, they don't feel any regret. They feel no regret whatsoever, except perhaps the regret of having been caught. It's profoundly sad, but on this issue, on this note of where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Brothers and sisters, in the United States and South Africa and other parts of the world, we have got to stand up. We have got to step up. SubhanAllah, we had a screening for the release of this documentary, well done, short documentary by a group of sisters, committed sisters in the UK, came together. I mean, these are supporters of Afia Siddiqui. In fact, their group, their coalition is called Friends of Afia. And they've been doing this work for a number of years. When I visited the UK a few years back, I had the pleasure of being in their company and speaking at a couple of events that they had a hand in organizing. It was a wonderful visit. In fact, I had 2 visits to the UK and just wonderful visits. I was very impressed with them. But anyway, they came together, they put together this, they produced this documentary on Afia. And we showed it yesterday to a very, very very small audience. I mean, that space should have been filled. And I left feeling disappointed at my brothers and sisters who knew about the screening that was to be done, but just was preoccupied with other things that they felt were more important. I was a little disappointed because I know that if Afia Siddiqui were a politician, she would probably get a whole lot more support, a whole lot more attention. And so this is a criticism that I must make of my brothers and sisters, and not just and especially the leaders, but not just the leaders. I mean, at the end of the day, we get the kind of leaders that we deserve. And we can't just point the finger and just blame leaders for our own recalcitrance on the issues that are of or should be of great import. I know if Afia were a politician, she would get more attention than what she's getting. And we've got to change that. We've got to change that. And it's not just Afia. I mean, we have many political prisoners. Another one just came to my attention just the other day. Another one has just come to my attention the other day. A newly minted, officially newly minted political prisoner just came to my attention the other day with a request from a brother out of New York. Brother Saalakhan, can you help us? Can you give us some assistance? We have got to step up, because unless and until we step up, we're not going to be able to push back in the manner that we should in order to bring about much needed change that will be in our interests and in the interests of the better of the two Americas. And for those of you on the other side of the Atlantic, in South Africa, other parts of Africa, and in fact, indeed, other parts of the world. The struggle is an ongoing struggle. We have got to do as much as we possibly can to help conscientize the generation coming behind, the generations, inshallah ta'ala, coming behind us, if we are to make this world a better place for us all. On that note, we close as we normally do with the verses from the 103rd surah of the Quran, Surah Al-Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wal Asr. Innal insana lafi kusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amalu salihati. Wa tawassaw bil haqq. Wa tawassaw bis sabr. Which means, in translation of the meaning, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the token of time through the ages, surely humanity is in loss, except those who believe and do good and exhort one another to truth and exhort one another to patiently persevere. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.